November 25, 2016 began with the announcement of Fidel Castro's death at the age of 90. It was around 1 o'clock in the morning and shouts could be heard all around Miami. People taking to the streets and rejoicing after hearing the news. Café Versailles and La Carreta were filled with Cuban flags, pots, pans, and an uproar of joy. But why? Castro graduated from El Colegio de Belén of Havana in 1944. Later on, he would begin a civilian militia group to fight against the tyranny of Fulgencio Batista. Castro succeeded and took power in 1959. He was seen as a hero of the people, a freedom fighter, and a charismatic leader. So what would cause the Cuban people to celebrate in Miami? I spoke with alumnus and delegate of the class of 1956, Roberto Borboya, about his point of view as a citizen during the Cuban Revolution.
Now, going back to, you had mentioned that in 1959 there was actually a lot of hope in the Cuban people because, Fidel Castro had just taken down the regime of Batista.
Right.
So my question is, where did that transition begin, or how did that transition begin from people seeing Fidel as this sort of, savior or this bringer of a transition to a sort of subject of discontent or hatred to some of the population?
Well, I would say that came late 1960 when he started taking people's properties away and putting people in prison for nothing, just for being against him and things like that. And then came the transition after Bay of Pigs towards the Soviet Union, and that's when they couldn't hide anymore that they were going to be a communist regime.
And this also brings up a good point where, despite that apparent transition, the Cuban people were all for Fidel. He was a part of a great institution, the Belén school. He was well revered. And then in 1960, like you said, he started to, the communist manifest of himself and his plot sort of became known. In 1961, you had tried to fight back, as you had said. Despite all of these facts, there are people who in this population in America who praise Fidel almost and mourn his death. Why do you think that there are people who are sort of in support of Fidel? Why do you think that they...
Well, first of all, and mainly because they haven't lived in Cuba. Okay, there's a lot of romanticism about a leader that it was David against Goliath. Fidel stood against the United States, and that was very well taken in all of Latin America and in a lot of countries in Europe also. So it was a romanticism. They didn't know because they didn't do that much propaganda about all the killings in 1959 and 60 and even 10 years later.